So I'll be talking about how we actually started implementing IPv6. And in fact, for those of you who probably want to know, we went live in March with IPv6. And I'll talk a little bit about our experience. So the first thing, which is more critical, is where the hell is Sudbury? So it's actually a small town, which is actually about 4 hours north of Toronto. It's a quaint little town, about 165,000 people. And when Bruce asked me, hey, are you interested to go to California? It's like, duh. You don't need to pay my trip. Nor did he. But anyway, so it's all good. About Laurentian University, just to put it in perspective. So we're about 10,000 students. And just under 10,000, and with staff and faculty, it's about just over 1,000 of staff and faculty. So we're talking about 11,000 people we need to support all at once. 5% of our students are international, and you're probably thinking, in Sudbury. Why is that? In fact, our growth is significant because it's actually, well, between 15 and 23%, as you can see up there. The point is that we're actually known globally for quite a few things. One is one of the natural resources over there, which is water and mining, are huge. It's actually globally known for that. So we've got a school of mines that compares to none. In fact, when you study there, you go underground to study. So if ever you're looking for a warm place to work, in fact, when you go underground, when it's 50 below up on top, it's actually quite warm down there. We also are fresh water, which we call living with lakes. There's only 2 of this in the world where you actually do research, and then the water's right there. And it's an entire place, of course, to do research. We've got Snow Lab, which some of you may not know, but we actually have a major neutrino laboratory where we have 8 experiments going on all the time, all at once. And this is done at 2 kilometers, or about 1.5 miles underground. This is, again, puts us on the map for that. Forensic sciences, we're well known. We're also triculture. Not only we're bilingual French and English, but we're also what we call native. Aboriginal studies, which Santa Fe is another one that's also well known. Sports administration is very huge, and where 25% of our students actually get a job outside of Canada. And of course, our engineering team, which is our pride, back in April actually won the NASA Lunobotics Championship at NASA in Florida. So Sudbury, some of you may not know, but it's actually on the map for a lot of students, prospective students, and so on. So that's why the view of being global is so important to us. So of course, why did we want to do IPv6 urgently? I do agree with Ron. If you haven't started now, you're already late. You're at risk. And that I cannot stress more. There's no more IPv4, so we already know this. Internet is moving to IPv6, so that's well known. But when you're actually trying to recruit an international students who may only have IPv6 and they can't see your website, duh. This is the bad thing. In fact, our president, who's actually a 40 under 40, Dominique Giroux, was there 2 weeks ago for a few weeks. And lo and behold, the students were bringing up the Laurentian website, and thank God that we had IPv6, because for some of them, we know for a fact that it wouldn't have worked. So this is where we, before all of this, we decided to get on board with IPv6 rather quickly. And as you can see up there, if the Vatican is doing it, it's probably a good thing. I'm a good Catholic boy, so with guilt, a lot of guilt, so now I have no more guilt now that I've implemented IPv6. And I recommend it for everybody. But before we started, we said, what's the most important thing? Is it the internal network or is it the external? And with just the example I've given you, having that external focus was by far the highest priority. And when we looked at it, having to work with our RSP was probably going to be quite a challenge. But this is the experience that I'll share more with you, and why we focused on them, meaning our customers. In fact, that was it's funny, I was visiting, I used to work not in the public sector, I used to work in the private industry. I'm an old Wellfleet guy, if you believe it or not. I've been through Wellfleet, Bay Networks, and Nortel, and quite a few other, like Extreme and so on. So I used to live out there, in fact. And when you start thinking that people may go on your website, and if you're doing it for business, and you may actually not have an IPv6 website, that's pretty bad if they won't be able to do any business with you. So for us, it was about recruitment, and that's what we did. So our goals when we started this was to be dual stack, no tunneling, to try to do it as native as possible. We wanted to participate in the IPv6 Day, and we wanted also to be the first Canadian university to do it after we found out that there's no other universities that had a complete, full website on IPv6. Some of them had a little bit of IPv6, kind of I would say more of a test area. They had some of the parts of the website working. But when you're a student and you're trying to look for all the information on Laurentian, you don't want just part of a site, you want the entire site. And that's what drove us to get there. Therefore, I joined Laurentian University on December 1st. And on December 9th, our second meeting with my management team, we set out that we're going to put a plan together and get it done. I say this because it's not like we were able to prepare or my team was able to prepare. And this is why I say we've done it in 90 days. Originally, we didn't think it was going to be 90 days. We thought it was going to be 180 days. But it took us 90 days to get there. And that's what I want to share with you, you know, that it wasn't that difficult to do. So on December 9th, we declared we're going IPv6. So there goes the track. So what we did is we put a master plan. So within a week, we had a master plan, which was quite easy. When I hear Ron earlier mention about don't be afraid of breaking the glass, well, we probably broke a lot of windows, let's put it that way. But it's okay. We trekked across. So we knew that we had to assess the entire network. We host our own website, so we have, you know, we had to configure firewalls and so on. Also, highly recommended. We read also Sylvia's IPv6 Essential book, if you don't know Sylvia Hagen. That's another thing. I'll be honest with you, I didn't read the entire book, but definitely read the first 3-4 chapters, and my team did also. So that was the other thing. And then, of course, we requested our /48, which was, that was kind of cool, having a /48, and totally agree with Ron about divvying it up in /64s. That made our life a lot easier internally. So off we went. We sent the application on January 11th. Our assessment actually started by then, and we did both the network and server verification. On January 17th, we also talked to our ISPs. Our ISP is Cogent. And this is where we found that we could not peer with them. So what they've created with us is, because we were really aggressive, they created just a tunnel, a layer 2 tunnel, to another router, which would be in Toronto. So Sudbury is about 4 hours north of Toronto. Got a tunnel, a TLS tunnel, to Toronto, where we actually peered with a V6 router over there. And then, so therefore, they configured the TLS, and then we were off. They gave us a V6 address, and we were off to the races. After that, we, interesting enough, we got, on February 4th, we got our /48 from Aaron. And just a little note for those of you out there, if you don't pay them quick, they don't give it your /48 very quick too. So that was one of the issues that we had run into, was that by the time all the paperwork was done and we're going crazy, we said, where's our /48? And it turns out that we had to pay them first. So we paid them. As you can see, we paid them on March 3rd, which we received our /48 immediately. And we went live on March 4th. And this is how our entire website was actually fully enabled, and we're off to the races, and we were the first university to do it. It wasn't a race between universities. It's just that, you know, I'm a little bit competitive, and I like to be first. So that's how we got there. So what were the challenges? The biggest one, which I've got a few more slides, were on the networking side. I'm probably not going to tell you things that are that different than you probably don't know, but there were some few surprises. Working with our ISP was surprisingly a lot easier than we expected. We did have to go through the, what we call the layer 1 support. They were not well trained, so we had to escalate and work with the proper people at the layer 2, layer 3, or even at the engineering level. Once we got to that, it worked out very, very well. And then on the service side, everything was relatively easy. The only thing we found a little bit difficult was working with the Macs or Apple. But otherwise, in general, it was quite easy. So because we did our own thing, everything worked out pretty well. So let me get into the networking challenge. I was stunned with some of the comments from the manufacturers. Stunned the fact that some of them, and one in particular, made a very big statement that said that we think IPv6 is a pipe dream. Let me tell you, this particular vendor, we actually worked out to get him outside the network. So we're going to get him out of our network. Having a visionary or misrepresentation like that was pretty bad. I'm not going to mention any names. There are one of them that I'm going to show you over here, but I'm not going to mention them by name. And it was only an appliance. It was not like a network infrastructure vendor. So shocked, to say the least. But most of them, definitely there. So we started working on our routers. Interesting enough, when I joined Laurentian, I used to work for, like I said, Bay Networks. So I'm the one who launched at the time, the Passport 8600. And now I had to live with my own bullshit. So that was kind of cool. But it's actually worked out really well. Turning on IPv6 was no problem. But the OSPF was not there, was not actually, OSPF v3 was not supported yet, although it was promised to be delivered this year, and it was delivered. From our perspective, we felt that it was just not ready there, the MIB being one of them, and so we decided to just relax on the OSPF deployment internally, and that's why our internal deployment got delayed a little bit. We used static routes wherever we needed to. The firewall, we had both Checkpoint and the little Nokia firewall, and Nokia did not support IPv6, so we did not a plug and play, but we call it a plug and play. So we just pulled it out and replaced it. And so we did that. The big thing that we found to be notorious is that we had to write all the rules all over again. There was no quick way of copying and paste the rule. We had to write them all. So we had about 24 rules that we needed to write, but no big deal. We had our time to do this. And by the way, in terms of deployment, the people that were involved was, well, of course, myself, but not on the hands-on. My manager, Marty, who's been instrumental in putting the plan, and then one network, you can say network expert, and that was it, to do all of this. So let's keep going. Load balancers. This is where we use Barracuda, and this is where the comment was that there's no IPv6, but it's coming. And this is where I think we don't trust them as much as we should. So instead, what we've done, because we needed load balancing for our website, we actually used the Apache load balancer on the server, and that's how we got around it. So again, so you're probably thinking, this is probably not an enterprise class deployment. Well, it's not that bad, to tell you the truth. And also, if you really put a stake in the ground on the timeline, this is how we've met it. And I can tell you that anybody can do this. So this allows us to bypass the load balancers, at least for the website, and then we use the Apache load balancer. In terms of the HTTP/v6, we decided not to support it right away, although it's very clear that we're going to get there. It's very clear that we need the HTTP to push the options, to do the tracking, and so on. Instead, we use Slack. And although like I said, some limitations in terms of like pushing options and so on, and the servers were hard-coded, so that was not too much of an issue for us. So on the DNS side, we actually we configured our own quad A's, and the only thing we found was there's no IPv6 based communication, but that was again no major issue because it's using v4, so everything would actually get resolved and advertised. So not a big issue. The one thing that I would also look out for is that for some of you, we don't talk a lot about this, but the marketing people love seeing analytics, and especially web analytics. And being a marketing person in the past, this was very important, and we had to rewrite some, we had to do some custom JavaScripts. Only because they didn't exist for v4, so we had to write them. So if you're actually planning this, I would definitely, just a little FYI, take the time to rewrite this, because if you go to v6 and all of a sudden you don't have any analytics, for example, you know, we just talked in China and we see no action from China. Well, you may, but you didn't have the analytics properly configured. So very important to do also. What was our total cost? $2,000. In Canadian dollars, I guess that would be about 5,000 US. No, I'm just joking. It's about the same. And the cost was to get $1,500 to get our /48 and $500 to configure the TLS from our ISP. There was no other money involved. So when I hear it's expensive, I think it is expensive, especially if you're a carrier. But if you're an enterprise, to me, that's nonsense. Also, just a little caveat, when I got in, I was talking with our president. When I told him, I explained to him the issue of people not seeing our site. The question was, well, don't look at it later. The question was, how soon can you get it done? And I think there's definitely a fact that the higher leadership needs to see this that way, and maybe it's the way we communicate. But there was definitely something there. I didn't get well, what about these other priorities? You don't have the time. I didn't get anything of that. And so therefore, my message to you would be, you got to have the right message at the top. Traffic on our side, or at least on IPv6, it's not that high. But again, we're talking about 400 to 500 students that we have, international students, and that is growing upwards to 23%. So every little bit counts, basically. And if you have customers that are representing more than, I'd say, 2%, 3% of your business, then I'd say get it going fairly soon. And then we're extended IPv6. We were the first university, and since then, we've got quite a few larger universities doing the same thing. So what that tells me is that it's not insurmountable to get this done, and of course, you can follow us on our blog. Summary-wise, like I said before, there needs to be support at the C-level, but you need to give the right message. And the message is that it's probably not, the internet is moving to IPv6. I think you need to say it more directly, saying you will lose business if you don't have IPv6. And that was one of the key things. It was relatively easy, but we did find that we needed some training. And also some troubleshooting tools, it was a little bit of a steep learning curve for some of our guys. So I think Roberta mentioned earlier that training, absolutely. We definitely enforce that. And of course, it opens new abilities. So again, we were guided by the Pope and Eve also. So thank God for that. And we got it going. And I wanted to make up some time, and I think I did. So if there's no other questions or any questions, otherwise.